Hello, welcome to week 5 of nonprofit management. My hope is that you're really in the groove of kind of how this course is being laid out and through the journey. Hopefully you're working through your course project and get it so you don't have to do it all at the end. We're going to continue off of last week's kind of nonprofit management practices, and we're going to talk a lot today, and this week is going to be dedicated to kind of the financial end. And so we're just going to lay out just a few practical things that you can do and for you to be aware of as you lead within a nonprofit organization. The readings that are provided for you are really good and great detail. Crutchfield, Heyman, both of those texts really kind of lay out a lot of detail, maybe even more detail than you probably need in this process right now, but they're always great resources to go back to as you build out a nonprofit or you lead a nonprofit. So I'm going to share my screen with you. We're going to kind of go through these slides and lay out the best practices of high impact nonprofits, the second part of this. One of the things that we want to realize when we talk about money and mission is that they are linked. It's very important to understand that our money has to kind of follow our mission. Our mission comes first. I've heard this over and over again, that money follows ministry. Growing up in the church, it was very important concept for me to realize that I had to make sure that my mission or my ministry was laid out there first. And that's why we've talked about over the weeks, you have to have a very clear vision when you lead a nonprofit. You have to deal from a point of clarity. One of the things I'm trying to do in our larger organization of FCA in Atlanta, where we have over 100 staff, is really trying to get the staff to clarify their vision, clarify their mission for their area, so that when they're communicating to possible donors or trying to apply for grants or whatever they're doing to try and gather up their funding, that they're very clear. So there's a few things that the books kind of go over, and I'm going to kind of deal more the general concepts of a combination of the books and some other readings. But you'll want to make sure that you're in touch with the readings this week to really get more detail. And you're going to spend a little bit of time, because as part of your course project, you're going to have a part that has bylaws and kind of the way your board functions and the roles of your board and kind of your donor plan and some of those kind of things. So you want to really pay attention to these readings. The first thing when we talk about the link between money and mission, we need to focus on stories of impact. So when we're communicating mission and we're wanting to raise funds for our nonprofits, because us in the nonprofit world, that's what we have to do. We have to raise our funding. Most nonprofits do not generate products. I did read a report that a lot of nonprofits are able to gain revenue through other streams. But for the most part, most nonprofits are out there trying to gather donor bases or build awareness of what they're doing in order that people may give financially. So the first thing you have to do is you have to give stories of impact. What are the stories of great impact? That's what connects to someone's heart. That's what connects people to the mission. So when we talk about the link between money and mission, we have to talk about stories of impact. What's happening? What are the things that are happening that fall in line with your vision and your purpose, right? Those value points that we talked about in the last couple of weeks, what are those value points that are impacting your mission? The next is something you've heard over and over again, this elevator speech. So we have to have this elevator speech, kind of this 2-sentence, 3-sentence vision or mission, or be able to communicate everything we do. I think what happens many times in nonprofit world, when we communicate a mission, we communicate everything we do. We make it very kind of convoluted, and it's a little too long. So you kind of need that speech, like you're riding up in an elevator, you've got 4 floors. What can you communicate in that time period that really kind of talks about your mission? And then be able to answer the questions that are going to be asked, which means what we've talked about in the last few weeks is that you have to lean in and learn. You have to learn about your area. You have to learn about your demographics, right? You have to learn about your community and your culture, so that when someone asks you a question, you're able to answer that based on your vision and your mission and the goals that you've set forth. Deal in facts, right? You need to have the facts about your nonprofit work. What does your board look like? How do you raise most of your money? Deal in the facts of What is your mission and vision? Draw clear boundaries around what you do. These are all things that the books talk about. They talk about a lot of factors that go into that. How do you adapt to culture? How do you deal with culture? So deal in facts, and give an analysis of the impact against the need. So we're going to have to give an analysis of the impact against the need, meaning what is the need? And we talked about how we identify that, right? How we look at the community, how we figure out what's out there in the community, and we have to analyze, are we impacting that need? Because when people or organizations want to donate to what you're doing, they want to know, are you actually impacting the need? Or are you being wasteful or a poor steward, or are you doing things that don't really fit into what the need is? So knowing the need and then being able to analyze that impact in the need is very important. So when we know those things, here's a couple of other things that we need to make sure that we gather as we begin to do the process of putting together our budgets and putting together our financial needs. No answers to the pushback questions. So be prepared. That's something that we have to do in nonprofits. I even think that's something we have to do more in nonprofits than for-profit organizations. And I think Heyman talks about that in the last couple of chapters. That we must be prepared. We must be prepared not only for the questions that are being asked, but the questions that aren't being asked. We have to know the questions that will be asked 5 to 10 years from now. Is this a sustainable organization? If this happens, what would we do? If this happens, what would we do? When you're talking about people and executives and organizations or people of great wealth that want to kind of be philanthropic and they want to give their money to organizations, they want to know if you have kind of a foresight plan. What does it look like going forward if these things happen? Because I want to make an investment that gives me a long-term return on that investment. So that's something that we have to be prepared for. Highlight the strategic plan. So be able to communicate. I've always known this in nonprofit world is that we communicate way too much information. Really what people want to know is the strategic plan. And that could be a one sheet of paper. I mean, you shouldn't have to do more than maybe half a sheet of paper. Here's our overall strategic plan. And what hopefully you're beginning to uncover in your course project as you develop out your organization is that you have spent time on a strategic plan. Strategic planning is so important in the process. And Heyman talks a lot about this third one. Who does what? What do your board members do? What do your volunteers do? What do your employees do? Who does what? Who is in charge of what? Who is responsible for what? This is something that we have to be able to answer and be prepared for. And finally, be able to give the full financial information. Don't hide numbers. Don't hide things. Be open and honest about, first of all, your need, about where you are. One of the things that we've had to do in our organization is that we've had to be really kind of open about where we are financially. As we raise funds, we talk about where we are, where we've gotten, or where we were, where we've gotten to, and what we need. And then we've talked about some of our budget items. Heyman even talks about you don't have to give, detailed line item information, but overall financial information is important for people that are going to give. So as you read through this, a lot of it is going to be a lot of information for you to kind of work through. It's a lot of detailed information, but I'm telling you right now, the baseline of really successful nonprofits is they have a very good handle on their financial situations, their donor relationships, their donor plans and strategies, and they understand the link between money and mission. That they're just not out there saying, you know what, God will provide and God will do this and God will take care of this. There's a lot of validity in that. But it's important for us to understand that there's a link between money and mission. So spend some time in your dialogues this week, making sure that you're in great detail. Go find other readings on this as you develop a plan. Now, your course project is going to have a part in it called the community map, and this is something that you're to work on this week. The community map it's a really cool thing. Now, this is an example that I'm giving you of what a community map would look like. But this is not what your community map should look like, but you can feel free to use this model. And basically the way this works is if you look at this map, the inside circle where it says stakeholder map project, that should be the name of your organization. All right. And now I've given you, it's kind of called a STEEP. All right. Social, technology, environment, economic, and political. those should be your circles. So you should have 5 circles around that kind of pour. What we're talking about, those are community things that pour into your circle, into your organization. Now, if you want to add some, if you want to use some of these, that's fine. But understand, whatever you add, you have to give detail about. So what I'm looking for in this community map project is, if with your social, your technology, your environmental, your economical, and your political factors that pour in and kind of point towards your organization. These are areas in the community or the culture that you have chosen for your project, for your organization to impact. And what I want to see is detailed about that. How does society impact in that culture? What are the social makeups, the demographics, the religious organizations, those type of things? How do those impact? So we need detail. All that's written kind of in the course outline. And the same for technology and environmental, economical, and political. So we want to see detail of all those. So you're going to have this map, all right, and then you're going to have on another sheet of paper, you're going to have social, and then you're going to list out very, very well, very detailed what the impact is and why the impact, and all that's listed kind of in the course outline. And then make sure, we don't want opinion, we don't want things made up. So you've got to do some research in this, okay? This is not something that should take a lot of time to create, but enough time to kind of help you see the impact that not only these areas will have on your organization, but that your organization will have out on them. So it can be a really cool project, this community map thing. I think it's really, really neat. I would spend some time just kind of doing your research. You should have some research already on this, so it shouldn't really be that difficult. But make sure that you give some detail, and because that's going to be included in your final course project. So once you've completed this, make sure that you have a section in your course project, and your course project, of course, is creating your own nonprofit organization, and that you include that in there. So have a great week. God bless. This is going to be a fun week. It's going to be a detailed week. It's going to be a little laborious reading, but you can do it. And remember, you've got to get these things down because it's important to the success of nonprofit management.